Welcome back to Riley Every Day as we continue our countdown through the Sleepers Media top 100 players ahead of the 2025-2026 season. I am joined by Ryan Hammer, and today we are getting into the real bulk of this list. It's players 40 through 31, and you're going to start to see more and more players who are on those preseason all-conference teams, high ceiling type of guys who could even push for an All-American campaign if things break right. But Hammer, I will have you do the honors. Why don't you read this group of players?
Yeah, before I read it, you're totally right on that. Like I feel like someone on here is going to be an All-American, and these are like top 40 players in the country going into the year at least are like you got some dudes on here. So without further ado, starting at 40, we got Jackson Shellstad at Oregon. Hopefully his hand is all good. At number 39, we got Neoklis Avdalas at Virginia Tech. At 38, I thought it was Tyster Ritter, but we found out from an inside source from you, it's Tez DeRitter, which is interesting at Virginia. 37, we got Marcus Burton, Notre Dame. 36, Nick Martinelli at Northwestern. Ryan Commo from Louisville at 35. 34, we got Tomislav Ivicic at Illinois. 33, Emmanuel Sharp at Houston. 32, Rob Wright III at BYU. 31, Caleb Wilson at North Carolina. And number 30, another freshman in Darius Acuff at Arkansas.
Appreciate that, Hammer. Actually, this was a user error on my part. Tap the chest. We will not be discussing ACUF in this video. I know I sent
Oh
that in
yeah,
the
31 to
screenshot. Yeah, we'll
40.
cap it
Yeah.
at 31. That's on me. Bad prep on my part. I sent a screenshot of the names with ACUF in there. So tune into tomorrow's video if you want to hear about ACUF, who's coming off a 17.7 assist game against Memphis, who will surely get some love. But yeah, a lot of fun players in this list. A lot of guys. Honestly, I kind of like the ACC representation here. This is like the ACC tier of guys who I will
Mhm.
be tapped into because that's my league. That's who I will be. I guess the teams I tend to follow most closely. But let's go right into it with the player you believe will outperform his ranking.
Yeah, honestly, there's a case for a lot of these guys here where I feel like the back end of the list when we were at like the 90s and the 80s and 70s where those guys is kind of like, well, you have clear ceilings for a lot of these guys, but all these dudes for the most part could be basically number one options on their team. Maybe Rob Wright and Emmanuel Sharp. Emmanuel Sharp probably could be. Ryan Kymel, maybe not, but they could be awesome. I think outperform their ranking here. I think Neoklis Avdalas, I'll go with at Virginia Tech. I've been high on him and his skill set. I don't know how good Virginia Tech's going to be. I want to believe in them. I am cautiously optimistic, but he's amazing. He is like the true Luka Doncic type build, at
Mhm.
least of like a 6'9" playmaker who can score and create in all levels, plays at his own pace. Love what he does, and I think in the ACC he's going to fry some teams big time. So.
I love Avdas as well. He's been a guy I've been pounding the drum for all offseason, and even this Virginia Tech team where just how Mike Young actually has NIL funds this time around and doesn't have an A10 level roster. So I really want him to remind people that he can coach because I like some of the pieces there just with Abdullah and Amani Hansberry, Toby Lawal. That's a really solid top three that if we're being honest, should like put them head and shoulders above like probably 10 teams in the ACC. The real bottom half, it gets ugly
Yeah,
quick. But yeah, I love Neo, but I'm gonna stick in the ACC with another Euro and say Tez de Ritter is the one who outplays his ranking. Every time I watch him, I just think he plays like a Tony Bennett four-man. You know, back when they used to do the blocker mover stuff with the
yeah.
physicality, really good at setting screens, can pop out and knock down threes and pretty good body control. Not the most explosive athlete, but expect him to still shoot a high percentage around the rim. But something that stuck out to me. So last year in the top league in Spain, the same league that Kasparis Yakashonis came from, De Ritter averaged 9 and 5 and shot 39% from three. And if you remember, Yakashonis, he did most of his damage in the second division. Like he got some minutes in the top league in Spain, but it was more he saw more time like on the B team. I can't remember if it was Real Madrid or Barcelona. It was one of those
I
two.
think it was Barca
I think you're
because
right. Yeah, he played
yeah,
played more for Barca's B team and averaged. I want to say Yakashonis averaged like 18, 5 and 5 for Barcelona's B team and averaged like 3 points and 2 assists for Barca's A team. So if you saw him like not play super consistent minutes for the A team and still have a really solid, if not up and down year at Illinois this past year, I think DeRitter's numbers should translate immediately. He should feast on ACC front courts that just, for the most part, can't match his physicality. And just from talking to the Virginia staff, they are enamored by him, and I think we'll run a lot through him. So big fan of DeRitter. But
yeah, I like that a lot. I agree, and I think as a team they're super underrated. So if the team has more success, like we talked about in Neo, Virginia Tech, Virginia's even better than them for sure. And they have a great coach now, Ryan Odom, and a really good team. So if they can win at a high level in the ACC, he'll get even more limelight. So whether it's 12 points a game and whatever blocks and 9 boards looks like as a mid team in the ACC, but if it's a top team in the ACC, it looks a lot
Mhm.
better. So
For sure, for sure. Moving on, got to get into a little negative for a second. Which of these guys do you think is most likely to underperform his ranking?
yeah, I don't know. I hate doing this because like I feel like there, oh man, like I guess Caleb Wilson as one of the highest ranked on the list. And listen, I like everybody here. Actually, you know what? I think I have. I was gonna say because he's a freshman and I like don't have as much confidence, but I do have as much confidence. I'll say Tomislav Ivicic because there's a good chance he's not their best player on that team. And if Mirkovic is as good as he's been, if Mihala Petrovic is going to be awesome like we expect, if Kylan Boswell is going to be the main playmaker, like maybe Tomislav doesn't take this jump that people are kind of expecting out of him. And 34 is way up here. I think he has a
Mhm.
really good floor. We know what to get from him. He's awesome. But I'm looking at the other guys on here. Like some of these guys could average 20 plus points a game, like and be on strong teams. Like that's kind of
Right.
hard to outplay that. So I'll say Tomislav. I was gonna say Caleb just because he's a freshman, and I'm like, this is a high expectation, but he deserves a high expectation. So I'm gonna go off that.
Yeah, I think that's a good angle to look at, just where there could be a little more balance this year than there was last year, where everything kind of ran through Casparis and Big T. And I know Will Riley came on strong down the end of the year, but it seems like if you go back and watch that team, it was a lot of, if it wasn't Yakashonis initiating the offense, they played a ton through Ivicic. And even something that I loved about his game was, and even where like I would say I'm higher on Kylan Boswell is their two-man game. So I think you'll
Mm.
still see that, but I think the pieces around him, I would kind of expect Boswell to improve his stat line from last year. I think Petrovic is going to get a lot of minutes, and even Stojakovic, there's a
Yeah,
chance that
there's.
he's still like a could be a 15, 16 point per game scorer, which could cause his stats to at least take a step back. For me, I was honestly between Jackson Shellstad and Neo, and again, I love Neo, but if I had to like play devil's advocate here, I wonder how long it's going to take for him to adjust to the athleticism. And don't get me wrong, I think he keeps the ball on a string. His handle is insane for his size. He's like 6'8", 6'9", and I love his passing. Like he truly has a flair for the dramatic. If you go and watch his tape playing in the top league in Greece, he's getting a paint touch and he'll draw a double team and contort his body in the craziest angles and find a guy in the corner. It's like these insane passes that I hope translates. But just seeing sometimes like these younger Euro guys, it does take a while for it to translate, just dealing with the speed and athleticism. And I try not to put too much stock into exhibitions, but Virginia Tech lost to Duquesne by 2, and Neo only put up 11 points and 5 boards. I didn't even see an assist stat listed for him, which I was like, ooh, this is hurting my agenda a little bit. With Shellstad, I would say that like the contrarian's point here, like I get that he's a super tough shot maker and has really throughout these 2 years at Oregon had such a feel for the moment. He was awesome in their tournament game against Liberty. He was awesome in the tournament loss to Arizona. Like he really elevates his play in the
Mhm.
postseason. But I'm just looking at the numbers: 13.7 points per game as a sophomore, 12.8 as a freshman, 2.7 assists as a sophomore, 2.8 as a freshman. Not quite the leap we expected going from that first to second season. Doesn't really get to the free throw line. And I think in terms of playmaking, this is an interesting stat I found. Nathan Biddle actually assisted on more made twos than
Mm.
Shellstad last year. So you're not really looking at him to throw lobs or to get guys easy looks at the basket. Looking at his Kim Pom page from last year, his first comparison was 2022 RJ Davis, one of my personal favorites. But Davis was more of like an ancillary piece that year when
Yeah.
Carolina made the Final Four run to both Caleb Love and Armando Bacot. And so that scares me a little bit just because I don't think, unless Wei Lin is just awesome, I don't know who else Shellstad has next to him in the backcourt to take off some of this burden, which could lead to, again, similar type numbers and maybe an Oregon team that is probably on the bubble or maybe, somewhere in that 6 to 8 seed range and not quite top half Big Ten team.
Yeah, I hear you on Jackson. Definitely wish he had a bigger improvement last year. I expected him to have a bigger breakout. They are a lot less. They're a lot thinner this year. It's everywhere. Like they have no depth. I do love Waylon, but this is not a Waylon segment here. We love him. I like Jackson Shellstad's game a lot. He hasn't been that pick and roll playmaking handler that you really want out of him, and I think hopefully he takes a turn again. The broken hand doesn't help his progression
Mhm.
and his development, but hoping he's okay. I still believe in him, and I am a little higher on Oregon. The Neo thing is interesting because, like I said, he's the guy that I expect out of all these guys to most likely to outperform his
Hmm.
ranking. But I almost agree with you on the underperformance. Also, I just think his variability is so high
Yep,
that like things could go very wrong for Virginia Tech very quickly, but they could go very right also. Like you don't really know what we're gonna get out of them. So I get that. I can't really argue against it.
for sure. Well, let's move on to the next category and tell me your favorite player here. Who are you most excited to watch this upcoming season?
Oh man, I love watching Rob Wright. I love this dude, and especially at BYU. Like last year at Baylor, the second half of the year he really came on, and they had a need for another handler and scorer and playmaker. He was so good breaking out and really for a majority of the season, but middle of the season, and he's so crafty. He's such a naturally gifted point guard, and now you put him in arguably the best offensive system in the country, if not a top three, with
Mhm.
Richie Saunders on one wing and AJ DeBanta on the other wing. Like it could not be a better situation for Rob Wright to be maybe one of the best point guards in the country this year. Like Braden Smith, whatever. Like Rob Wright can put himself in those conversations this year if things go well and average a crazy amount of assists because he's so smart, he's so intelligent, he's got great footwork. I genuinely just love his game, and he is going to fry on a BYU offense this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would even add having Keba Keita catching lobs, who I don't know if
Oh,
you watched the BYU UNC exhibition, but Keita looks like he's ascended a level. He's
yeah.
probably our most glaring snub right now. I thought he was awesome. And it's just a great supporting cast for Rob. And down the stretch in that game against Carolina, he drove into what I thought was traffic. I think I'd have to go back and watch the play, but I'm assuming it was Vasar as the primary defender and Jonathan Powell helping off. Powell is 6'6" with a plus wingspan. Vasar's a true 7-footer. It looked like he got stuck and somehow found Moo Davis in the corner for a go-ahead three that sort of iced the game for BYU. I think Carolina was playing catch up after that. And that was just one of those moments where I know Rob was quiet in the first half, but came alive down the stretch of that game. And even last year at Baylor, I would have said he's probably maybe like top three in the country in terms of best handle. And so that's going to lead to a ton of highlight plays, especially when you consider how many guys he can drive and kick to and then throwing lobs to Keita. Yeah, he could be in for a special season.
Yeah.
I will stay on that same game, though, with UNC. And of course, I'm going to say Caleb Wilson, but he's the one who I've been most excited for. And that exhibition game only, I would say, increased my anticipation just to watch him play a real game. I just think he can get to the rim whenever he wants. And he's just so athletic, runs like a gazelle. Great touch around the basket. I think his big to big passing with Henry Vasar will make for some fun offense for Carolina. Questions about the jumper, of course, which might limit his ceiling a little bit. But if the first game is any indication, at least we have some signs to point to say like, okay, he's not just going to be a typical Hubert Davis four who had to rely on the three. Let's say a good Hubert Davis four who had to rely on their three as a major part of the game with both Brady Manick and Harrison Ingram. I think he's talented enough to sort of compensate in other areas. Plus, the defensive flashes are insane. Like UNC has not had an athlete like this on the wing for the entirety of my fandom. You probably have to
Yeah.
go back to Antoine Jameson in the 90s
I
when
was
I
gonna say
was.
like you have like smooth scorers usually on the wing. I remember like Justin Jackson and guys like
Mhm.
that. But like Caleb Wilson's crazy. He's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Can't wait to watch him. Last category, Hammer. Tell me something you need to know about any of these players.
Yeah, I want to point out Nick Martinelli on this list because I feel like him, Northwestern, they're gonna get overlooked all year. They probably won't be a good team and probably won't be a tournament team, but it doesn't mean Nick Martinelli doesn't deserve attention and love. And they will inevitably beat Purdue or beat someone big in the Big Ten randomly because why not? Nick Martinelli had more 20-point plus games last year than below 20-point plus games last year, and that was playing with Brooks on a team that obviously wasn't great, but that was playing with Brooks Barnheiser. Who knows what he's going to do this year? I don't think he's going to be this like triple double machine or anything, but Nick Martinelli is going to be team on his back for Northwestern the year in the Big Ten, and he's going to be an all Big Ten player as long as he's healthy. So I almost just want to shine light on guys like that are really slugging it at times in a conference that is going to
Mhm.
be so challenging to play against with a not as great team. Just we'll call it what it is. But Nick Martinelli is a great player, and I think he just deserves some love here. He just deserves some kind of shout out. He's on the list for a reason. So.
Yeah, great stat in terms of more 20-point games than under 20-point games. That's insane. And I think unless you're a Big Ten junkie, like I know a big part of our audience is, but we do have plenty of ACC, SEC forward fans that have started tuning in too. So they probably are unfamiliar with his game. I'm gonna stay with, I guess, a similar type of play. Well, not a similar on court style player, but someone else who's on a bad team but will put up numbers with Marcus Burton. So
Mm.
he's listed at 6 foot 190. Looks small out there, like he always has. But looking at the numbers, he had 7 games last year of attempting 8 or more free throws, including a game in the ACC tournament where he got to the line 17 times. So I think for me at least, that stat shocked me because I had always thought of him through his first 2 years at Notre Dame as more of a knockdown pull-up jump shooter, which he does have that in his game. He pulls, he takes a ton of shots because he is the offensive engine there, and they haven't really had any other shot creators around him through 2 years in South Bend. They have Jalen Harrelson this upcoming year who can do a little bit of that off the bounce, and I think Harrelson has an underrated playmaker as well. But I still think Burton should be the go-to guy here. He's gonna get them easy looks from the charity stripe. And this should be a much improved Notre Dame roster around him. I mentioned Harrelson already, but maybe another year of Keba J. You see him anchor the paint well for him, bringing Braden Shrewsbury back. He's got a shooter on the wing next to him. I love Ryder Frost, Middlesex
Mhm.
Magic alumni. That's a program that has produced a lot of high level talent. Cormac Ryan, former Notre Dame Irish, most notably. I think there are more notable names than that. But for the sake of the exercise, Cormac is most notable to me. So we'll see if Burton can have that type of year and if Shrews can really kind of make good on the hype that was there when Notre Dame first hired him. I'd love to see them at least get on the bubble. I need them at least in the first four out this year.
Yeah, they're like, ah, man, they're such a weird team because on paper their team is not that good, but they return a lot of their pieces, which says a lot for in a bad conference power bet in a bad power conference on a theoretically a bad, practically also a bad team last year, but he still gets all those pieces back. I think that speaks to the culture and the guy that he is as a coach and what they're trying to build there and the vision. By the way, Ryder Frost, I'm pretty sure he shot like he 45% from three and like 80% of his shots were threes last year or something like that in his circuit. Like he is one of the best snipers you're going to find as a young freshman coming in. He's awesome. This is the year that Notre Dame has to make some kind of strides. I'm so with you. Like if they're not going to fire Micah Shrewsbury. He's awesome, but even though the team isn't great on paper, you're in the ACC. You have to be a top 7 team probably to be on the bubble and be an NCAA tournament team at worst. So if they can be that, I think that shows that things are going to go well at Notre Dame. And Marcus Burton is awesome. That like he's like a dynamite stick. I think I called him on a podcast episode once. Like he's so much fun to watch.
Accurate for sure. Yeah, I'm just saying this out loud to get it out there in the ether. I think through, what is this, year three for Shrews or year four? I think
Three,
it's
I
year.
think. I think it's three
So
because
Braden's a junior, and I
yeah.
think I think he and Braden
Because
have
he
spent
had the Jalen Pickett year was his last year, I think, right? So
yes, yep, yep.
yeah.
So this is year three. And I think through 2 seasons, the issue has been just not enough ACC caliber players. And I still kind of fear that ultimately dooms this team. Like Carson Tout is their backup big. He's a 6'8" 5 man and coming up from Northern Arizona. And just those guys have like a really checkered history who like don't have the size, played in I guess a decent mid-major league, but I'm really nervous about that. But even when I look at guys like Sir Mohammed and Garrett Sundra, like those were guys who had a little bit of pedigree coming out of high school. Mohammed, I think, was a top 100 kid. Sundra played at Paul VI, which has produced a ton of pros to where maybe there's something there where even if they're not the highest level guys, at least they will be competent and floor raisers enough to hang in the ACC, and you can let Burton, Shrewsbury, and Harrelson shine.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. So we'll see how it goes. It sounds like we both want them to be good, so I hope they are good.
yeah, yeah. Well, that wraps up this list. A lot of fun players here. We will be back tomorrow breaking down the next group. As always, thanks for tuning in.